Hello, it's Andrea, and I'm back with what I hope to be a daily, or at the very least every other day, quick commentary on news stories that catch my eye. Obviously, well, not obviously, but certainly a big story today is the punishing strikes that Trump has leveled on Iran. I spoke yesterday about the fact that yes, I'm blowing my own horn. I predicted this. I felt that the memorandum of understanding was an interim, a breather, so that oil prices would drop, troops could be rested and replenished, the Israelis and Americans could once again locate where key players were once they came out of their caves. All sorts of different balls in the air, all with an eye towards the midterms and keeping the military effective, keeping Congress out of war management. There were a lot of things going on. One of the things I did not discuss, and I wrote about it in on June 24th. I've got the article here at American Thinker, and it is entitled An Admittedly Oddball Theory About the MOU and Trump's Long-Term Plans. And what I posited was that the MOU was also a trial run for the Vance versus Rubio view of how to handle America's opponents. And you may recall that Trump cracked a joke because Vance was the leader of the negotiating team, that this was going to be sort of a trial run of Vance. If it went well, Vance would get the credit. If it went badly, he would get the blame. And to that end, I wrote, Trump needed an exit strategy, and J.D. Vance led the team that negotiated the MOU, something that could have been a huge feather in his political cap. The problem for Vance is that the MOU really is a lousy deal. It requires little of Iran, allows the people in charge to remain in power, gives cash to the mullahs and IRGC, and leaves Israel hanging out there, still vulnerable to Iran's genocidal depredations as expressed through Hezbollah. The base rightly hates the deal, and no party can win without its base. And then ... But Trump, who pays close attention to trends, has undoubtedly noticed a couple of things about his vice president. He negotiated a lousy deal, and he's way too close to the Tucker Carlson renegades from the Republican Party. He's also being seen as overtly and covertly anti-Semitic, which means alienating a base that supports Israel, which is a true friend to the U.S., and driving away the Jews who have recently abandoned the Democrat Party over anti-Semitism. In addition to pointing out these problems with Vance, I wrote in the same essay that Rubio offers a very different foreign policy viewpoint. So let me quote myself again. What Trump must have noticed is Marco Rubio's soaring popularity. Rubio is competent, morally clear, and has no connection to the increasingly weird and anti-Semitic Carlson crew. And I concluded that I think it's open to question just how much Trump was actually joking when he announced that Vance would take the fall if the MOU fails, as it inevitably will. And I illustrated the essay with a picture of Vance, a little downcast, walking away from Trump's desk as Trump looked with longing eyes, so to speak, up at Rubio. I mention this because it turns out, completely unbeknownst to me, back in June, a guy named Will Ricciardella had the same sense that Trump was giving the two foreign policy approaches a test run. So what Will wrote in June 17th is, and I'll quote from it, "Totally speculative read on what happened inside Trump world on the Iran deal. Hear me out. Rubio made the coercion case, keep pressure on, break leverage, impose terms. Vance made the off-ramp case, stop the shooting, reopen Hormuz, get gas prices down by 60 days. Vance won the immediate argument, but Trump made him own it. That's why Vance is the public face of the deal, while Rubio remains the fallback if Iran plays games during the nuclear talks. Politically, Trump gets the hedge. If the 60-day window works, Trump takes the window. If it fails, Vance owns it and Rubio gets handed the wheel. And he says the big problem here is that Iran gets the same 60 days. Of course, Iran couldn't last 60 days. So now, with the deal having definitively fallen apart and the U.S. starting to bomb Iran with great vigor, and I hope targeting all the people tracked at the funeral, Richie Ardelli, I'm not sure how he pronounces it, is back. So let me go back and read what he wrote just yesterday. My read on the Vance-Rubio split is aging pretty well, and Trump just put Vance in a box. Hear me out. Vance won the first Iran argument, stop the war, buy time, ... So he's going through what he already wrote. And he says Trump made him own it. This matters because the MOU was never just paperwork. It was Vance's world view in diplomatic form. Conflict is a trap. Incentives the solution, and enough trade, investment, and legitimacy can pull a revolutionary terror regime toward normality. Let me come back for a minute and say what Richie Ardelli didn't say, which is this was also Obama's approach to Iran, if you think about it. It was all carrot, no stick. Rubio's lane was always different. Pressure, leverage, terms. He defended Vance publicly because that's what a disciplined cabinet secretary does, but he never tied himself to the fantasy that Iran was one investment package away from acting like a normal country. Now Trump is saying the opposite out loud. They're scum, crazy, liars, and cheats. They've acted this way for 47 years. They have to be stopped. That's Rubio's argument in Trump's vocabulary. This is exactly what I said, and again, I was tracking what Richie Ardelli said a week before, unbeknownst to me. Let me continue because I think this is a really insightful point. So, Vance has a problem. He can't keep selling the MOU as peace after Trump called it a waste of time, so the escape hatch will be obvious. Iran failed the test, America hit back, and we win either way. Fine. But that's not what he, meaning Vance, sold. He sold an off-ramp and peace, but Iran used it to regroup. Rubio doesn't have to spike the football. Trump is already doing that for him. If policy follows the rhetoric, Rubio's lane gets handed the wheel. Pressure, leverage, and terms Iran can't refuse. If policy stays at punishment, Iran already priced in, Vance's failed bet becomes the administration's problem, and no one can run from that. Trump is a smart guy. He needed the time. He gave Rubio, Vance a leash. The pit bull at the other end of the leash, instead of becoming well trained, turned back and bit the leash holder. And now the Rubio policy is putting in place. It's a policy I believed in all along. I continue to be Team Rubio. Both guys are still saying they like each other. 2028 could get very ugly, but certainly when it comes to prescience and how to handle a true rogue nation like Iran, one committed to an apocalyptic view of the world, Rubio is looking like the winner now. The next topic I want to discuss, it's kind of a funny one. There are two stories that just came out recently. The first is that Patti LuPone, the great Broadway star, and she is a great star, she's a diva in the old mode, went on a cruise. It was a gay cruise, and she was going to be the diva, the icon on the cruise. And she was horrifically upset that Turkey barred a gay cruise ship from admission to its ports. Let me read you what she had to say. From LGBTQ Nation, authorities in Turkey blocked a gay cruise from docking in the country this past Thursday, claiming that it would violate the region's moral values. This sparked the ire of Tony-winning Broadway legend Patti LuPone, who is scheduled to perform on board. In a statement In a statement posted to social media on June 28, Turkish authorities said the cruise had, quote, sparked significant public concern, close quote, as it had been planned by groups known for behaviors that do not align with the structure of our society and our moral values, close quote. Authorities claimed the cruise had been, quote, canceled, close quote, adding that, quote, there is absolutely no possibility of the group in question visiting our province for an event of this nature. ... On Friday, Lepone, who is scheduled to perform on the cruise, posted a statement on social media blasting the turn of events. I am shocked, the Agatha All Along star wrote. The Atlantis cruise I am performing on next week has been banned from Turkey. Lepone went on to note that the magnificent ship, which would reportedly host around 2,000 LGBTQ plus passengers, had been, quote, denied entry to Turkey simply because of who is on board. I am furious, but I am sailing, as the ship will make other ports of call, she added. I am ready to perform for all the wonderful men on this Atlantis cruise who deserve so much better than this. Are you shocked? I'm not shocked. The other story is that Indonesia is starting to crack down on LGBTQ conduct, saying that it also is an offense against public morals. The reason I noted this is because it occurred to me that when Democrats and other leftists across the West look at the West and excoriate it, to hate on it, are embarrassed by it, they are for very specific reasons. The West's history of slavery, the West's history of homophobia, the West's history of being anti-woman, the West's history of colonialism, the West's history of discriminating against minorities. This same left is happy to ally with Islam, with Islamic nations, and with Muslims within their own political cohort. And of course, I'm thinking of Mamdani and Ilhan Omar and the guy in Michigan, El Sayed. And they're just thrilled, and they feel so hip and wonderful because Muslims are brown-skinned, or at least they're mostly brown-skinned if you ignore Central Europe and all sorts of other places. And it's not just that they forgive Islam, it's history. Islam is open about the fact that the history is still today. Islam is openly homophobic, as we see now in Saudi Arabia and Iran. They get hanged and beaten and all sorts of other things. Islam is openly about the subordination of women. Islam is openly proud of its colonialist, of its imperialist goals. They're constantly speaking about conquering the world. Islam is openly hostile to minorities. I mean, Islam, whenever it gets a chance, ISIS, other countries, they enslave. They either do it through wars, ISIS did, or they simply do it as tradition. You go to Qatar, you go to all these places, slavery is the norm. North Africa, they have slave markets all the time. And yet, the communist pressure is such, the power brokers understand what's going on, and the useful idiots remain idiotic in their ignorance and promote Islam. And just recently, an American woman in Ireland was beaten to death by her Muslim lover, whom she promoted constantly as the avatar of cultural perfection, as opposed to the corrupt Western society that she had left behind when she fled America to Ireland to be with this man. On that cheerful note, and I always seem to end on such cheerful notes, thank you so much for joining my podcast. I really appreciate it.